All right, greetings, good afternoon, good day, everybody. Haki Hamid, a success scholar. Thank you for tuning in. You're here on Raising Consciousness and Capital, broadcasting live on the Raising Consciousness and Capital page, as well as our Teaching Artist Institute pages on Facebook and TV, on YouTube, as well as our LinkedIn account, Haki Shkorami, as well on Facebook pages. So hopefully you are enjoying your wonderful day. I'm Haki Ami here, and we are coming up on the post U.S. Africa Trade Summit and many other amazing events. So we are going to be talking about East African Investment Tour. I have actually several brothers and sisters joining us here. So we're going to have us a good conversation. And I'm going to share the link for those to view it in the comment section. As you can see on our Thai TV page or our Raising Capital page, it's in there. So I'll share the Facebook link in a second for my guests. But I have Sister Kim Poole, who's on mute, but let me get her in, and Swantale and Sentwale and Sister Swatara and Sister. Yeah, I don't see your names, but hold on. Matter of fact, let me move my. Hold on, let me move my names. And Queen Mother, Dr.
Yeah.
Janelle. Let me put your name out. I can't see it. I mean, I know who you are, but I'm sorry, it's just I just can't say it like how I write it.
Jabril.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. So, but oh, just heard something. But yes, it's a beautiful day. Good to see you all. And first and foremost, I know everybody on here. So, and Kim Poole, I don't know if you're aware of the sister, but I know she's been doing some tremendous work in West Africa, cashews and other products, of course. But I'll go to you, Sister Swatara. You can kind of open up for us since you will be coordinating and working with the Teaching Artists Institute with this investment tour. And you and your husband, you both left the United States. Well, first you're from Detroit, but you lived in Houston area, and you went first to Tanzania and then to Rwanda. And so I'll let you open up and just share a little bit in terms of this investment tour as well as some of your experiences of being a repat. And I think that's a very unique opportunity that we have because you are there and have been there consistently. And I'll let you add on to Sister and Kim can come in as well. But I'll let you open up first while I start posting things in the link.
Asante Sana Baba Haki. Thank you, all of you who are here on this panel. Thank you for coming and doing this. It is an extreme honor, and I'm just so proud to be in the number. Yes, we did leave America, and I'm so glad that we did at the time that we did for the reasons we did. Because the work that we can do, like you said, we're in a unique position to be able to facilitate these business relationships, investment opportunities, enrichment, empowering the economy all over the continent at the hands of Black people, African people of the diaspora. And in order for that to happen, or a way that that could happen, is for people they are familiar with to be here and tell them. It's one thing for somebody who was born on the continent and raised on the continent, and for them to, for whatever reason, go to America and tell someone about how it is on the continent and what opportunities are there. But when I speak your language, I was raised with you. I grew up in the hood in Detroit, Michigan. Like, there is nothing, I'm not an outlier. There is nothing just so extravagant about me other than my willpower, my determination, my love for my people. But we're the same. And I'm not telling anyone anything outlandish or impossible. This is very possible. And we know because we're here doing it. And so Right now, the U.S. Africa Business Summit, Investment Summit, Tourism Summit is happening right now, that you all are actively participating in right now. So I know, again, thank you for taking time out of that busy schedule to come be a part of this. But yes, it's time. It is time. And as long as we're here and we plan to be here in perpetuity, then we will continue to facilitate these relationships so that we can empower our motherland. It's ours. Like, this is a reclamation period.
Right. So my name is Sintwali Olushola. Not only are we here, but we brought our children from the States with us as well. And so not only are we making sure that we're able to do these different make these different connections and build on these various levels, but our children are also seeing it happen real time as well. So the example that we're setting is not simply for ourselves and for our contemporaries, but it's also for the babies. And we brought 5 from the States with us. That was all of our children at the time, and we actually had our youngest born in Tanzania. And so she's part of that connection, that bridge that we've been building. And like Swatara was saying, part of our purpose is making sure that people are able to have a bit more assurance in making these investments, because instead of being able to just trust somebody that you're not quite sure that your money is going to be appropriated properly, you would be able to understand that we're here, we're living, we're not struggling or hurting like that, so we're not hard up for cash. So the opportunity to have that level of trust is a lot more available relative to a complete stranger, somebody who can't relate to folks coming up from the States. That's part, like I said, that's part of why we're here.
And it's vice versa as well. We've built relationships with brothers and sisters here where they're like family. We're able to be on the ground and vet different businesses who are seeking investment, who are successful on their own, but would like to partnership with African people in other parts of the world. And so we're also uniquely positioned to facilitate the relationship the other way as well. But we'll stop talking now because there's other people on the panel.
Yeah. Well, let me go to Dr. Javille, Queen Mother. Yes, and we appreciate you joining us here. I've known you for a few years now and admire much of your work. And you taught Howard a little something I know about you. I don't know if you're still there or you're doing your. I know that you've been focusing on some West African countries in terms of cashews, but I know that cashews is a big thing, like in many different parts of Africa. So just open up and share a little bit about yourself, and then we'll come to you and let you share a little bit about the Teaching Artists Institute and Ty Torres.
Okay, greetings everyone. Etison. I'm so delighted to
Before
be here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hello. Yes, I'm Queen Mother Nana Akuya Kalia. I am a Queen Mother for the Braun Kingdom, twice installed and elevated to the highest level of the Royal Kingdom in Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. So I'm coming to you in that capacity. In fact, it is in that capacity that I got to meet wonderful Swatara. Swatara's sister married someone from our kingdom, and I was there to bless the wedding. So it's just really full circle how all this comes apart. So Swatara and her family are part of the Royal Kingdom, which is the kingdom where all the Adinkra symbols originated. So the Gianyame Sankofa, that is the kingdom where I'm Queen Mother. And it's King Adingra, the descendant of the king who came up with the Adinkra system, is the one who installed me. So I certainly come in a capacity as a part of the traditional chieftaincy to speak in that regard as those questions arise pertaining to reconnecting with Africa and investment, and also some perspectives and access that might be unique. As dear Haki mentioned, I am a professor at Howard University. I've been on the adjunct faculty for over 1 decade, where I teach international business to MBA students. So I prepare the next generation to help implement as well. And thirdly, I am a global strategist and a global implementer. I've been doing that for, 25 years. So I grew up in corporate America as a strategist in implementing. I left corporate Fortune 10 company to go off on my own about a decade ago, which has been quite successful. So a lot of what I will share with you when we talk about investments, I'm trained in the area of business and always saw it as a building block tool, and I'm able to help implement that. As was mentioned, currently, yes, I'm working to restructure the cashew sector, which is a billion-dollar industry in Cote d'Ivoire. And because of my stool in that region and my work, I'm often and happily associated with Cote d'Ivoire and West Africa. But I will share with you that I've been going back and forth to the continent for 30 years, and that I have worked in every region in the continent. So I'm quite familiar with certainly East Africa, North Central, Southern Africa as well. So that's my background. I'll be happy to entertain questions. I applaud this effort in terms of reconnecting. I will end just by saying that when we speak about diaspora, it is not just recent expats from a particular African nation. And I have observed that there is a shift or a redefining of what diaspora means. And really, that's what you would call an expat, or maybe a new immigrant community. Very valuable, very valid. But I think it's also important to understand the inroads of those who have left the continent kicking and screaming and have really never forgotten or feel compelled for that desire to reconnect. And that certainly is me and many of us as well. So I'm pleased that we have the broader definition of the collective African experience and the various contributions and areas of healing and talents that we uniquely bring.
Ashe.
Ashe, indeed. Yes. All right. So, Sister Kim, you had an amazing past few days with the U.S. African Trade and Investment Forum. So, and I know you're there with Mama Day from Cleveland. So she'll share, just in terms of, we've worked in the East African region, and so now we're going to partner and coordinate this for Rwanda, Tanzania, and Kenya excursion for investors here in the diaspora, if you will. So just open up and share about your experiences in terms of investing in Africa or partnering, or however you care to open.
Thank you, Baba Haki. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge that our time with the U.S. Africa Trade and Investment Forum is not over. This conversation is very much a part of that. We'll be sharing this conversation with all of our colleagues. We've invited them to tune in to watch it live, and we'll make sure that they are aware of those that want to promote their business as an opportunity for investment. The new form of enslavement is a lack of knowledge, those that know and those that do not. And so our organization, the Teaching Artists Institute, and Ty Tours, the for-profit arm of our work, is vested in making those connections, being that bridge. I'm an artist. And though we do business on an international level, I will never tell you that I'm the expert, right? We learn new things about how to be sustainable in our work every year. We've been in existence for 8 years, and that is a very small feat, standing next to the elders like Mama Ide that have been doing this work, next to my sisters like Angela, Minyara, Sales, that went to school and now doing comparative analysis with economies around the world. But what I will say is that as an artist that's been working internationally with our organization for the past 8 years, and also doing that work individually for over 15 years, that we have learned firsthand the importance of connection and partnership with the right people the first time. What we've learned over this process is that small entrepreneurial ventures, they don't have the money or time or resources to fail. And so it's very important for us, especially grassroots connections, startup initiatives, that if you decide to work on a continent, that you're in a network of people that at least have the capacity to say yes, even if they say no to your initiative. Because how often we're presented with those that do not have the capacity, that come as something that they are not, because like they call the dark continent, you just don't have the clarity around who's who and what people do and how to invest and where the first time around. Even some of the entities set up by the government that are there to filter investments, like investment centers, etc., take percentages of deals that happen that are unnecessary, and unnecessary financial hardship for startup initiatives from the diaspora. And so we, with Thai Tours, we're always looking for opportunities to facilitate tours that connect those in the diaspora to the continent, especially in regions where we work. We're not a tour company that's like any other, because we're only doing tours to places where we work all year long. So that gives us a unique advantage, because we know the people, we know the ethnicities, we know who's who, because we're working with them whether you come on our tour or not. And the reason that for next year we're doing the Ujamaa East African Investment Tour is because we know that our curators this year, Swatara Olushola and her husband, Baba Sentwali, they have an intimate relationship with those that are doing the work on the ground. And through their own personal experience, they are a testament to what it means to pick up everything and to no longer read about it, to no longer watch YouTube videos about other people talking about it, but to put your money where your mouth is. And they did it with their babies, their most precious resource, in tow. And to me, that is a unique level of vulnerability. They can teach people how to take risk. They did this during the pandemic when people were told to stay home like your life depends on it. Don't go anywhere. They said, no, this is opportunity. This is our chance. This is how. That kind of mindset needs to be duplicated. It needs to be taught, and it is valued. We see the value of you leading this investment tour, and that's why we're excited that you've allowed us to partner to help launch this initiative. You are one of many initiatives that we have invested in to help launch. We, as an organization, through our tour company, we take businesses from ideation, just concepts, just conversations, and then we scale them, not just nationally, but internationally, from idea to the packaging of the curriculum, the cultivation of those ideas. Then how do we deliver? How do we identify your target and your messaging? And now how do we put what you talked about, what we developed in best practices, to practice, right? Now we're going to also be with you and partner with you, walk with you while we test this model thing out and make sure you go from ideation to launch. And so that's what the Ujamaa East African Investment Tour is. It's their life skills, what they have lived, packaging that experience for consumption so that other people can live from that and also watch their growth on the ground. And we can't wait to be a part of that journey next October 11th through the 22nd through Tanzania, Kenya and Rwanda, where they're currently based. And I so very much appreciate that this conversation is timely on the margins of the U.S. Africa Business Summit, or I'll say African Leaders Summit, and then our own side event, the U.S. Africa Investment and Trade Forum, because it's important that we make our own safe spaces for these opportunities, ones that we have vetted, ones that we have decided as a Pan-African community, as a global African family, that are necessary, conversations that we want to make known, because the U.S. Africa Leader Summit, we aren't invited to that table. Now that Africa is the public interest of the United States once again, because we know that Africa has many roles that they've played in Africa secretly and quietly. But now that they've brought that conversation to the forefront, we need to make sure that we're not only at their table, but we have our own table, that we're building investment opportunities for us, by us, so that we have an alternative, and so that we're building with our own cultural epic center in mind.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Yes. So, real quick, Kim. So, who, I wasn't there the full day, but was any of the well, not the presidents, but any of the vice presidents? I know there was some ministers of agriculture from the Gambia, and did the first lady from the Gambia show up? Not the Sierra
She
Leone.
did. The first lady came. She was there. The first lady of Sierra Leone. She was also there. Several of the leaders from different West African countries. We also met a new kingdom, the Kingdom of Kush, and their president was there. They have a lot to announce this coming February at the United Nations. We had an inside look at what that will look like. I also have with me one of our Thai elders, Mama Ade, who experienced the forum over the past 3 days and had an intimate conversation with many of those leaders. And so I wanted to give her an opportunity to just talk a little about the forum itself, some of the business opportunities that were available there, and why it's important for us to not forget culture, and not what we build, but how we build in order to be sustainable. The business psychology of our institutions is what we're talking about, the culture of our companies. And so, Mama Ade, if you will indulge me, I'd like to give her a moment.
Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you all for having me on. It was an amazing 3 days. I got a chance to interface with heads of state, with presidents of countries, with business heads, with Queen Mother of Harlem. That was very interesting, to have all of these players in the room together and talk about sustainability, to talk about culture, to talk about business, and why we should invest in Africa, and what part we can play in each other's businesses and lives. It was a very interesting conversation, listening to them talk about education, listening to them talk about the future. It was an amazing time. Our part to play as cultural individuals, how that fits in a business mindset. I know I was saying that it doesn't matter what kind of business you have. Culture and the arts is foundational to every bit of it. I don't care if you're making just a cog. It is the design of the cog. That's creativity. And so the creative arts is foundational to business, color, design, all of that is foundational to business. And culture, our culture is picked up all around the world, whether it's hip hop or the way we do our hair, the way we wear our clothes, our swag, as it were. The world revolves, using our spirit and our cultural acumen. And so that is leveraged as business. Our movies that we make. Black Panther just outgrossed any movie that has been made. And we need to continue to tell our own stories, and employ our folks when they did The Woman King. All of those wonderful actors and presenters being hired. We need our own studios so that we can tell our story, our own radio stations. So at any rate, I don't want to belabor the point. I do want to just say what an amazing weekend to be able to discuss these things and talk about that. Talk about repatriation to Africa for those who want to do that, and the mindset and the brilliance of all of we and how that's used. So at any rate, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Mama Day.
It's been amazing.
It's our pleasure.
Yes.
So Queen Mother, Queen, go ahead, anybody. So what I know what other events did you go to over the last couple of days? You any panels or speak anywhere? I'm sure.
I was not active. I was not as actively involved in this iteration as I had been 8 years ago. And that's for a number of reasons, and particularly because I am an implementer. I've been spending the time getting ready for the action plans. You know, some of us are connectors, and some of us are thinkers, and some of us are doers, and we all have collective roles, certainly to play. With that said, I did participate with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation earlier this week, talking about agriculture and agribusiness. And it was really quite dynamic because some of the AGRA upcoming conferences will actually be held in Tanzania. And the message was, America, you know, if you don't join, other people will continue to play. If you don't participate, if you don't invest, others will. And we're interested in diversifying. We're interested in having you. So I was quite pleased with how the tenor has changed, and I think that was well understood in the room. I also participated in investment meetings at the Embassy of Cote d'Ivoire with the Prime Minister. And so really discussing ways forward in terms of investment and what those strategies look like, which I think are quite sophisticated. So, you know, for example, one of the terms that you hear is local content. So when you talk about investment, if you are a foreign direct investor, right, there's this need to engage local people, local hires, right? And we know how youthful the African continent is. And so in the case of Cote d'Ivoire, for example, the investor can get tax incentives based on doing what you might call the right thing. So you are not compelled to hire local content, right, or your local workforce, but you receive a 2% corporate tax deduction if you do. You are not compelled to hire Ivorians as management teams and in leadership capacities, but there's an additional 2% tax savings if you do. You are not compelled also to have an Ivorian co-owner, but there's an additional 2% if you do. So that's an example that I think is quite smart in terms of addressing and incentivizing issues we haven't seen with other partners when it comes to local content, engaging local management and leadership, and even real partnership and ownership. So that's an example. So yes, right now I'm quite deeply focused with Cote d'Ivoire, as they are, have been ready to engage and implement. And so certainly I continue to work with other countries, but I tend to speak on the actionable results and not so much things that are incubating or in progress. So there's some work that I've been doing with Central Africa Republic. For example, there's some exciting work that I'm doing now, and our team is from Nigeria, South Africa, Canada, and the US, for example. So it's just really exciting. And I would say that we have to go deep within a particular country. As Sister Kim mentioned, there's so much diversity with the ethnic groups. It's important to understand the lay of the land. Once you have a model and once you understand that community, you are then able to scale it, or you'll be invited to other countries and other communities with your investment, with your product, project, or know-how. So the other thing I would like to say, particularly as most of us are, of African descent, is that on a spiritual level, we are often drawn to where we may have ancestral connections. We may or we may not know this. And so while we might feel a kindred connection or drawn to certain regions by virtue of the people or the culture or what they're known for in terms of what they produce, but ultimately there should be a level of synergy and connection, of mutual welcoming in the environment where you are. And I think that's something that's very important as well to consider. So thank you.
I have a
Yes.
question, if I may.
Of course.
I know you spoke about work that you've done in other regions of Africa
Yes.
as an implementer, but you ultimately chose the Ivory Coast. And I would like to know why you chose the Ivory Coast, how you came to receive your installment twice. And yeah, we could just go with that two-part question.
Okay, I will say, well, I will say that Cote d'Ivoire chose me. So the story is quite phenomenal, where I'll tell the brief iteration of it. But I was on the official advisory council for AGOA to help get it extended the 10 years. And it was quite an uphill battle, but ultimately we were successful and we got Congress to pass it. In that capacity, I was invited to speak during the AGOA conference in Libreville, Gabon. When I spoke very candidly. Someone who I'm not just on the policy side. Again, I am, I do work, whether it's at a multinational level, whether it's grassroots. I'm in academia, so I know education. I've always been at the touch points of sectors and industries. And for a long time, people didn't understand what I was doing, but they now understand how the intersection of all of these converge. So nonetheless, I spoke at the AGOA conference, and there were some women from Cote d'Ivoire who came up to me who were quite compelled by what I said, because it was not the normal, conversation. And as it would be, they invited me to work with them on some initiatives. And we certainly clicked, and we started to do some great work, which became a success story with the US State Department just 6 months later. A year and a half into our engagement and partnership, the Ivorian woman called me and said, Professor Kelly, we are so excited. You've been a great partner. You've worked with us for a year and a half, but you've never seen a shea tree. You've never been to Cote d'Ivoire. So women have gotten together and we got you a ticket. You're coming. So the women gathered and brought me a ticket. They called me a few days later, said, we're going to get the program ready for you to arrive. So when they called me, they were quite excited and told me that the governor agreed to have my audience when I arrived the next week. When they told me which governor it was in Gontugo, the Bonduku region, I said, where is that? They said, the Bron Kingdom. I had just received my DNA back, and I had been working with my ancestral land for a year and a half, and none of us knew.
Wow.
And the women had come together. Yes. And the women had come together to get me a ticket, and I was to arrive the next week.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing. So when I arrived, I was actually crowned when I arrived. And as I found out later, there was a legend that how they knew the next Queen Mother was coming. So they actually told
Wow.
the governor, the woman we've been working with the last year and a half, the woman we're bringing here, she's an ancestor. So I was the first returnee into the village in over 400 years, the first known returnee to return in 400 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So that
Issue.
so it's so to answer your question, it's really following your gifts and your calling. When I went to business school, it was not to go to Wall Street. I wanted to make things happen. I wanted to have large scale impacts with my work. I was a consultant to the international development community, but they tended to do projects at a very cottage industry, which was not really scalable and did not necessarily have the economies of demand for new market access or entry. So I wanted to do things at that larger level, and that's what we were doing. So ultimately, I was installed again where my crown was elevated to the royal kingdom, which encompasses Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana. So it is divine. If you feel compelled to invest, please do so. I did not know that I was walking into my queendom by doing this, because I was serving when I was on the advisory committee, and I was really getting to know the woman. I did not speak French at the time. It's now my fourth language. So, all things are possible. So why Cote d'Ivoire? Well, it has always been a business centric kind of country. And so naturally with my professional background and skills was certainly welcomed, and also as the first foreign born queen mother in the country. So there was a level of trust and acumen there. And so because I look at large scale, as you know, with Cote d'Ivoire being the number one exporter of cocoa, and it used to be pineapple and cashew, all these other things, they're able to, they have a readiness for the level of culture shift at a national level that is necessary. And so we are looking to use that as a model to inspire for agribusiness and to scale across the continent.
And you all recently crossed over into, well, I don't know about crossed over into, but did you recently open a manufacturing facility to kind of get rid of the middleman as it pertains to cashew processing and exporting?
Yes. I did not open a factory myself. What I did was help to train, audit, and certify all the factories across the country, so that they would have the capacity and the certification for direct market access. But yes, I am also certified to be a foreign supplier vendor, which means you have to have a touch point here in the US once you export. So we do have actual, that actually is an opportunity. We do have a factory, an amazing one that's available for investment. It's just sitting there, and it's actually in my kingdom, and as there are others. And so to answer your question earlier, I think Haki was asking about my participation this week with the US Africa Leader Summit. We did meet some CEOs who are building plants, American CEOs who are now building factories and plants in Cote d'Ivoire, largely because of the work that we have done there. But we are interested in encouraging more investors and owners of African descent, and certainly Ivorian as well. And so it's just certainly a very exciting time. And I will share the other projects that I'm working on that are not quite ready to be articulated, are in the arts. They're in the realm of the arts. And I will share with you that a lot of my work in terms of connecting or reconnecting our African diaspora for me started in Latin America. So I spent time in Brazil, studied in Venezuela, Afro-Latino communities and cultures. And they have reached out and are really interested and ready to reconnect to the African continent and with us as well. So just keep that in mind, that this really is a movement, and we should incentivized because it's an exciting time and we're the chosen generation to help usher this in.
We are the chosen generation. Yes. Sister Kim, can I ask you a question? Are you there? Or maybe Baba Haki?
I'm definitely here.
I just wanted you guys to talk about some of your work in West Africa. And you could touch East Africa too, but I know you have things set up in the Gambia, and just your experience with that, how that's been beneficial to you as a you're not an expat, as an African of the diaspora, where that definition is up in the air. But if you could just talk about your experience with that and how it's been beneficial to you and could potentially be beneficial to someone else watching. I think you're muted.
I'm talking. Baba Haki, did you want to go first?
No, well, you can go. She mentioned the Gambia first, so if you wanted to start, I mean, you can start the whole history, if you will. And the Gambia, she mentioned the Gambia, so, and there were some Gambian delegates there, so. Well, if she's not accessible there, you know, I came on board. Is she back? Okay. Well, I came on board to organize and coordinate the East African part of the Teaching Artists Institute with Kim Poole. So I felt like, strategically speaking, that was a tremendous opportunity for several reasons, politically, you know, just as well as demographics for the tourists. So we went during COVID, and actually, as you know, Tanzania was like the only country. Well, someone said something about Madagascar. Is that true? Was that they opened as well? Right. I think you all might have mentioned that about the countries that were open. And so what we did was we opened like a vacuum, if you will, because many people, and I just really realized that many people were paying attention, individuals that were curious in terms of, you know, traveling. They were like watching, like, what are you doing there? Where's your mask? And, you know, everything. So we had tremendous experiences and tremendous success stories with some of the artists, student teachers that both came with us and on the ground there. And so we opened up some diplomatic, political relationships, as well as relationships with institutions of higher learning there. And so from there, South Africa was last year. That was tremendous success, and then to Kenya. And so, but those are some of the major things that happen. And so we feel like that East Africa is sort of like, I mean, even people that I know that are conscious, you know, they don't know even where that is in East Africa versus West Africa. So I feel like there's a niche just to, I mean, in terms of tourism, first and foremost, that people are still curious. Blacks here are curious, as well as, you know, with Kenya, President Obama, people, you know, began to travel to Kenya just because of his influence there. So we feel like that, you know, that the combination of those two things. But let me just say, I mean, this guy, when I told him about you and Rwanda, he was just very excited. He was like, Rwanda is beautiful. I mean, so, but I know Mama, what's her name? The one that from Ghana, that's there now. Africa, One Africa. Oh, yes. That's in Rwanda now. So I feel like we you know, are positioning this for a great success story, which we would like to have. So yes, I'm excited. So Kim, unmute if you're in position? If not, we can.
I think it got kicked out.
Yeah, here right now.
We could talk a little more about Rwanda and East Africa.
Oh, here go Kim. Here go Kim.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I do want to hear you talk all about Rwanda and East Africa. But to your first question, when you mentioned what as an organization we've been doing in West Africa, so we work in 7 countries. So 5 of which, or 6 of which, as of this year, include the continent. And so in East Africa, yes, we're in Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. But in West Africa, we're in Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. And so notice all those places they speak English.
Yes.
Anglophone regions are my favorite. And we've been invited to work in Cote d'Ivoire as well as Benin. See, I understand how very little language has to do with communication. And even that, understanding that, I've realized that if I'm already, if it's a steep learning curve to understand that body language, those things that aren't being said, those things in a business deal where you're watching the assistant go back to the office, and that matters when it comes to the survivability of your project, the feasibility of whether or not you should go into that area when you're trying to map the symbolic landscape.
Yes.
And when you're learning the players and doing that initial assessment, if we're having difficulty doing that in Anglophone Africa, oh my God, just add French. So in West Africa, no, we have not taken any of the offers like our Queen Mother.
Come on.
So in those areas, I'll start with the fact that we only go where we're invited. So I appreciate you saying, come on. That makes such a big difference. Go where you're invited, not tolerated. Go to a place where not you see an opportunity, but the people on the ground see an opportunity in working and being in partnership with you, because Africa is still a relationship economy. You have to know somebody that knows somebody. Your money is only going to be taken and you'll be giving nothing in exchange for it. And even if you feel that you've gotten something, you'll get the very least of what is available if you don't have a strong relationship. And so I don't want to emphasize, or I can't emphasize enough, the importance of the human resource, relationship development, and the adoption process. So you need to be adopted by a family. Forget what they told you about mapping your GI, what is it? Your DNA, geographically mapping your DNA and just showing up at the place. Yes, tourism is great. Go if you feel a connection. But what you should do is a little research on who's in the area, who's already working on the ground, and find a way to connect with those people, especially if you want to engage in business. So in West Africa, that's exactly what we did. We were invited. In Ghana, we were first invited by the Musicians Union. And I'm an artist. That's the reason I first started coming to Africa. They asked me to perform. And I'm not Beyonce. I'm not Jill Scott, not even Jill. But they didn't care. They thought that my music was great. They invited me over to perform. And, it's very different when you see growing up the narrative, the misinformation campaign that they give to us about opportunities on the ground in the continent. And I grew up watching the same things that they showed you if you grew up in the US, just 10 cents a day. Just 10 cents a day for this child with flies flying around, their belly swollen with hunger. This was the narrative. So when I started to receive opportunities to perform as a underground artist on the Chitlin circuit, where all of my expenses were paid to fly in, I stayed at the nicest hotels. What? There are nice hotels, the nicest hotels? And then I got paid a couple grand. And there was a stadium full of people. I felt affirmed and acknowledged, and they appreciated my art. This kind of cultural exchange and empowerment was taking place. That got me interested about other opportunities available. So it was in Ghana that we began our initiatives, and we worked with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture. And I realized that I didn't want Delta to get the most money. I didn't want the hotel chain to be the best paid broker at the table when it came to our repatriation, that there needed to be other intermediaries, like just so happened to be ourselves, not at the time, but I eventually said, if we're going to come over here to do the business, if we're going to come over here to do the exploration and the feasibility studies and the symbolic landscape study, then I need to be a part of that transaction first and foremost, because we've been doing that. Getting emotionally excited about our newfound understanding of Africa and connections. And then everybody that gets paid at the table is European, or you have to fly to Europe before you can get to Africa, and everybody gets money but you. And so even though culture is the new currency, we have to create a culture of development and filling needs in our community. Who has the expertise in our community to fill the needs that we have to facilitate the business deals that we want for our future? And so we wanted to be a part of tourism, and we started that in West Africa, in Ghana. I can look back as far as 2012, our first initiative, our first trip, cultural exchange initiative in 2012 to Ghana. With Mr. Rufus T. Stevenson and his initiative and the Ghana African American Association. We were invited to the Gambia by the Office of the President. By this time, our organization was established, and we established in 2016. Wow, I'm getting old, y'all. So November of 2016, we established this work. And no, I'm not going to go back another year. Okay, I am. It is November of 2015 at Coppin State University with the Department of Visual and Performing Arts. That was our first teaching artist delegation that was trained to help facilitate these connections, trained as cultural emissaries, as translators in this international business landscape, first with their own understanding and then to help translate, so to speak. So we were invited by the Office of the President in the Gambia to come and develop what we call an Art for Social Transformation District, to explore what it would look like as consultants with them to have art integrated into other sectors of societal development. And so we did our conference there, Artisan, as Hakeem mentioned earlier. This was in 2018. And we still have our office there. We are currently developing. We were given land by one of the chieftaincy. And so we're waiting for the paperwork now to make sure that it's legally in our names. We're learning about the process around how many of hundreds of years it can be ours legally before it is either taken back or we reapply with the next generation. So all of those small rules and clauses in the contract that you don't know until you have the experience. That's what West Africa did. It gave us our introductory experience to the continent. We were also invited to work in Liberia with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture with Mama Louise Sewa. She was the current Minister of Tourism and Culture. And it's nice when they're taking care of your visas, all of the little logistical things that add up as a small business that you don't know to include in the budget. Because, you know, it's your first time around that we can help prepare you for, and that governments that actually invite you, on ground stakeholders that actually invite you, can help mitigate. If only they've invited you, then they want to do that. And so we continue to work in those regions now. Those were our first, they are near and dear to our hearts. But since then, in 2019, we expanded to East Africa and we hit the ground rolling. East Africa is fertile ground. They just understand the assignment, and partners are already cultivated. They're already doing this work. International development, partnerships with Pan Africa. They're just glad that now we're at the table too. And so I'm excited that Swatara is going to lead an additional conversation to bolster that opportunity.
So, Queen Mother, I got a question, kind of actually not much of a pivot, but still very much related to what Kim was saying just now. Logistically speaking, how viable is it for foreign investors to be able to acquire property in Cote d'Ivoire? Are we speaking like an individual can go through the entire process and have a title deed, or does it have to be a foreign entity, excuse me, not a foreign entity, but a locally started initiated entity that will have to acquire the property in its name, or is like what's the protocol for foreign investors with property?
Sure. Well, property is seen as one of the key investment opportunities in Cote d'Ivoire. So there are actually some initiatives started by Ivorians living here in the U.S. that make their the opportunities to acquire property quite accessible and user friendly, if you will, to help make incremental payments toward your investment as it's being built. In terms of land, it depends on the project, and you would meet with the local chieftaincy. And I've seen sometimes ownership or sometimes leases or agreements. So the economic capital of Cote d'Ivoire is Abidjan. The national capital is actually Yamoussoukro, but everyone knows Abidjan is in fact about 25% international. It's a very cosmopolitan international city. So in terms of ownership of real estate, to live in our investments at an individual basis is something quite common. And in terms of land, it depends on the intended use and purpose of the individual or the opportunity, but they're certainly there.
Okay, actually, I got another question, if you don't mind, because I got a lot of information. I got a lot. I'm seeking a lot of information based off of other countries that we've been into and other countries that we plan on visiting. And of course, the Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire is one of those countries. I guess a pretty pertinent question that I want to ask is based off of our experience in both Rwanda and in Tanzania. We've kind of experienced the spectrum of when it comes to corruption, dealing with government officials from the top all the way down. And so in Tanzania, it's a bit out of control, just being speaking candidly. And then in here in Rwanda, it's a pretty solid chokehold on the corruption. What would an foreign investor be able to expect going into the Cote d'Ivoire?
That's a very fair question, and thank you for understanding the differences and nuances from place to place, right? It's an evolution. So Cote d'Ivoire really takes pride in its anti-corruption efforts. There's something that is called the Corruption Perception Index that is published annually, and you'll see that their ranking is relatively low in terms of corruption, and it's been a priority for the president. And there are a number of awards that are given to every ministry based on their transparency and based on the accounting that they do. It's so interesting because when I was first going regularly, it's quite common to have lots of ceremonies, whether it's with the officials and the government, or whether it's the traditional rulers or cultural. And they were always talking about, dollar amount or, sefa amounts, their currency, and so this much and something I didn't understand, right? But that's the level of transparency where if there are funds to be given or if there is a budget, that publicly it is announced who is getting what. So there is no, there's no discrepancy in terms of how much was given, etc. So culturally, I think they're taking pride in understanding the long-term impacts and the perception impacts that are negative or prohibitive with corruption. So I would say several years ago, it would be very different. You would get stopped and pulled over and asked for money. And that is increasingly rare. For instance, happened, which I don't do, but it was just circumstantial. I lost my smartphone. I left it behind at the airport. And when I was retracing my steps, and I saw this was my travel phone, but it was still a good smartphone. And in retracing my steps, I realized it was left at the airport. And I went to the police office and it was retrieved fully intact, put away in a safe space. And that was about 4 or 5 days later. For me, that is a sign of really understanding the big picture of pride and going the distance. So that culture shift is really happening in Cote d'Ivoire. So I appreciate you saying that. I won't say it never happens. I'm sensitive to this idea of corruption, whereas I don't condone it. I do understand sometimes the dire circumstances out of which it arises. And we as investors, it is partly our responsibility that we value the contributions, the skills, the hospitality, the time, and the resources of the people within that community who also have families and their livelihood. And I think if we don't appreciate that, that can sometimes drive behaviors that we look down upon.
Yes, yes, for sure.
Hmm.
I think also that you and your installment and Sister Kim and Baba Haki and the places they've been invited to also speaks to that evolution. You know, you didn't see a riot or a war. Oh, who is this American coming and taking this queen mother position? You know,
Yeah.
who are these Black Americans coming and building all these things and trying to force these programs on us? It's been open arms and it's been love. And it's been, oh, let's fly her out here, you know, before they even knew.
Exactly. You
know,
know, when I went to the village, there were some women singing, and I was going out to speak with some of the chiefs, and they were singing this beautiful song that had this harrowing sound that you hear in some of the Negro spirituals. And I said, "What are these women singing?" And they said, "It's a song about a mother missing her long lost children. It's a song of our community missing you. Those who we've been singing this song for 500 years."
Wow.
That
Wow.
was so moving to me. You know, I so there is a longing, and I know of specific stories. People, African people will know who was taken. Oh yes, my great grandmother or sister was very beautiful, and there was a Belgian who would come like clockwork every 12 weeks, and we would hide this woman. She was very beautiful. He kept his eye on her, and but one time he came a little bit earlier, and she went to the river to get water, and she never returned. And so those stories are known. They have an idea of who took them, who had the eye, and we're not bodies, right? So it is well understood. My doctorate, my PhD is actually in African studies. So many of us were selected or targeted not just for able bodies, but for a particular skill set, for particular talents, right? For particular capabilities, whether you were an excellent builder or a musician or sometimes too spiritually powerful. There's a lot of dynamics going on. So there's an awareness. And one of the most amazing things about traveling to the African continent all over is seeing the faces of people who look like your auntie, or they look like your classmate, or they look like, it's so amazing, you know? And so that's why some of that reception is just there. It's like, you are literally my auntie. So
And
I
that's part
don't
of
think
the difference. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. That is part of the difference. And so that is part of the beauty. And so I hear what Kim's saying about, you know, being invited and sponsored, but our highest goal is to have that spiritual reconnection in terms of wholeness. It doesn't mean you only go where you have a known ancestral bloodline. No, you do go where you are embraced and, you know, adopted. And when you find out the migratory and history patterns of some people, you may find out that you are exactly where you belong anyway, right? But that intrinsic connection is one of, for those of us who are ready, is one of the strengths, and that is felt when you're talking about investments, and typically in the business sense, you're looking at risk, right? And so some of the hesitancy is based on trust. Do we trust this individual, right? And also when you have an investment, you need a timeline. So you need to be able to have security in that over time, there will be a level of stability, right? To recuperate the investment and for it to grow. And if there's a perception of changes of regime or takeovers and all these things, that makes it very difficult in that risk assessment to do that investment. So it is about relationships, right? It is about relationships. It is about connections. And so some of us may have a deeper connection by virtue of going. You do have to go and see really where your spirit is accepted and certainly appreciated. And I would just say be open to what those opportunities are. And a little investment, even a $300 investment in an individual can change their life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's something we've been trying to stress to people, that you don't have to have tens of thousands or millions to make a solid, sound investment. It could be a couple $100, the same amount of money that some people would go shopping and spend and it won't see it again. You can make a couple $100 worth of an investment and see the return on it plus some. And you'll be changing somebody's life in the process.
Right. And I think once you, as Black people, if you will, once you make a decision to reconnect, once you make the decision to answer that calling, once you make the decision to return or visit, even the way opens up for you. Once you make a decision to invest, it's like things just fall into place because, like the story she told, your ancestors know. You might not, but your ancestors know, and they know when you feel that longing to head home.
And they come with the right intention, because I have similarly seen the continent spit people out.
I have and it's and so we have to humble ourselves when we come. Yes, we are survivors, and yes, as was mentioned, our culture is exported and influences the world, and we have all these things, right? But we have to be humble because there's a lot that we have to learn and even appreciate. And so it's not just about teaching, right? We have to be willing to unlearn and even relearn. And when I became a queen, I had to figure out, I was not raised in that environment or prepared for it. And so that's a journey in itself for me to grow into that role. But I realized, if I was honest, that I was growing into this role. I invited the people to join in with me. And it turned out that if you grew up in the city, if you were not growing up in the village, many of the African people there needed to be reintroduced to their own culture or using their own language or values, because you learn through osmosis and doing. And if you're not in the village, or like my father's folks are from the North Carolina, right? They're from the South. You go to grandma's house for the summer, you learn, but you have to be on the land or in the ground. But if you're not near grandma, and if you're in the city, there's a whole lot you're not going to know how to do. And so when we come, as we learn and humble ourselves, we cannot assume that all the people there also know. And as Kim was mentioning, Anglophone countries, when you're dealing with Francophone, the French speaking, or Lusophone, the Portuguese speaking, there's so much value on, what is European and, what is African, and their products are, often looked down upon. And so some of the early work that I did as an investor myself was showing the valuation of African products. And people would compliment me on my skin or things like that. And I'd say, oh, I'm using shea butter, I'm using this product. I'd say, what? You're not using Clarins from Paris? You're not? No. And now there's this influx, and there are stores and co-ops of African-based products. So you have local product development. And this is a new phenomenon to see the value in their own products sourced from God-given natural goods, right? And their talents, and then going back to grandma's recipes, right? So we can learn that and share in that together.
And I just want to add a little to what you just said about not going back, with this sense of, I am teacher and I know, because whenever we've gone to incubate any new initiative, it's always been in the spirit of partnership. Like, we're looking for partners. We don't have all the money. We don't have all the answers. We're looking for opportunities to be mutually benefited.
Yes.
And so, the sisters in the Gambia, for example, it's like, listen, sis, my people are suffering from diabetes, high blood pressure. We have real issues. And you have lemongrass just growing for free. Moringa, it just grows like that.
Yes.
Let us find ways to engage in this exchange. It's like, oh, you want some of the things from the US? Yeah, sure. If you want some of this Bath and Body Works, I'll bring it, and give me that shea butter. Let's trade. Okay. I'm not trying to make you feel bad about wanting a taste of American culture. Take it. And eventually, through that exchange, through the benefits that you receive because we put value on what you naturally have, you will begin to shift all by yourself, because opportunities for exposure is the true learning. I can't open you like a bottle and fill you up. Yes, sis. Don't you feel how that bleaching cream burn? But when every billboard on your street is lined with women featuring bleaching cream, this is our advertisement. And when every media outlet is an Indian Bollywood movie, when because I was always really taken aback by that when I'm just specifically in the Gambia. Bollywood is a big deal in Africa, and so when I see these images, bombarded, I know what you're going through. So what I tell you is that, man, you have the best skin, the highest cheekbones, and when you're here, the sun reflects off. It's how you deliver the information that matters. And I think that through our continued partnership in business, the cultural exchange happens too. And I think that that's better than saying, here I come, I've arrived to save you from yourself. And the reception that you receive is also different.
Yes. Wonderful.
Baba Haki, you've been real quiet.
No. I'm letting you all get it all out.
Yeah.
So
well, like we said earlier, we are based in East Africa. Our relationships, that's where we landed. We came blind. We've never been to Africa before. We came, it was just time. Our children caught our bluff. Also, we African centered. We love Africa so much. How come we don't live there? And we don't have a good spot. So that further catapulted us across the water. And being here, we have completed major projects to establish infrastructure in a couple different villages here. And this is just without us even really trying, or without us even really having the time or resources to really apply ourselves. This is what happened with us just seeing it. It was like, oh, that's a problem that needs to be solved.
I saw you brought clean, fresh drinking water. I am so amazed and proud of you.
Absolutely. And so that happened twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of them was over time, we're able to publicize it and raise money. And one of them had just a single donor. And so it was able to happen, quick. Nobody really had to hear a whole lot of hoopla about it. We just made it happen. In an indigenous Maasai community in a village called Mtoambu. And Baba Sintwali oversaw both projects.
Wonderful.
Very similar.
We've got villages that need more water. We're bringing some. We've got plenty.
Yeah. So it's, coming out there, surveying and seeing where the water supply is, what's possible, what needs to be cleaned, how it can get where, what's the most strategic way to implement this.
Yes.
That's what we do. Also, and it's not specific to water or electricity. We also put electricity in a village called Kwanakoli.
Kwanakoli.
Yeah.
So we actually had a construction project there that is almost complete. Part of it was bringing electricity to the structure, and in doing so, not only did that give the capability for others who didn't have the means to get those electrical poles and the register for the whole process, but it also increased the property value. So if any resale was to occur, then they're gonna make how I don't know how much, it's untold amounts more than what they would have made otherwise had we not started the project. And related to that, related to everything we just talked about, was a very invaluable brother who I was working with out there. When I say this brother basically made Tanzania look good, because he did his best to not only put forward his best effort, but he was honoring his father. That was the main thing. He was honoring his father's name, doing everything he could to make sure that we were getting a fair deal, and that we were learning in the process. So at some point it was I would go to the market with him, or I would go to a vendor with him, and then he would go, all right, bro, you go see how well you can do. And I would have to speak the broken Kiswahili that I do, and be able to manage and my best to get good prices and be able to build relationships with people. And I really feel like without that brother, we would have had a much rougher time. And that was based off of a connection that I had already had growing up from the States in Texas. A brother who had visited Tanzania a couple years back, he had set up that relationship, and I was able to benefit from that same relationship. And so I'm still very close to the brother today, and we work together to this day, and like invaluable. And so that's to say, if anybody is considering coming, not only are we here, all these people on this call are here, but being able to have a reference for somebody who is already on the ground in the country is a life changer, because it's going to be the difference between a good experience and a bad experience.
I would just like to say so many blessings to you and upon you. Blessings for all that you are doing. May you be fortified, and may it multiply as you are stepping out on faith.
Yes.
This is healing in action.
Yes.
And by virtue of the work you are doing, you are literally removing the excuses or reasons to not invest or to not come.
Yes.
Infrastructure is that not there? That is the case. In business, particularly in technology, there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
If you are having clean drinking water accessible, you are able to produce that much higher quality product.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
If you have the electricity, you're now able to do some of the small scale manufacturing activities and increase the safety of the community, etc. So I'm just so delighted, and thank you for inviting me to be here, as you are just, your journey's been beautiful, and it's just beginning. Harness that power and the sacred charge that's been, put inside of you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We don't really know another way to operate.
Yeah.
Sister Kim?
Yeah, I just wanted to add and bolster what Queen Mother just said. The reason that you're winning is not only because it's in divine alignment, but also because you go in the spirit of collaboration, and now you're also paying it forward. All the lessons that you've learned, and this investment tour is an opportunity for you to teach people that want to walk in your footsteps. And most people, when they come, is for very individualistic reasons. It's like, I finally want to get away. I'm out. I want to build a business for me and my family's legacy. I'm sick of America, or I'm looking, to make the most of my hard-earned cash. And you guys, every initiative you do, from Tanzania to Rwanda, when you came with us to Kenya, it was always about working in the spirit of partnership, collaboration, and giving back. And that makes the difference. The energy around your initiative makes the difference. Looking into the community, finding needs and filling it. That is real business development in the African worldview. And we have been culturally derailed. We're looking for capital without end, business that scale and scale forever, just grow without, any understanding of community balance. And so I feel like you are looking to build something that's sustainable, that's based on African character, the best of who we've been historically. And that's why you're winning. That's why you came blind and was still led in the right direction. Because even though you couldn't see, there was a higher power and energy that was watching and looking and guiding on your behalf. I have to understand and know that, not on a deep spiritual level, but by the results that you've been able to make. If you don't believe in ancestor, if you don't believe in spirit, if that's too deep for you to vibrate with, look at your family, Swatara. Look at Baba Sentwali and look at the outcomes and results that have been produced out of nothing. That
Out
is
of
what
nothing.
people use. Yes. Out of
Nothing.
throwing darts at a map and saying, oh, your country is open, we're coming, and you've succeeded. And now you're leading other people down that path. That is the result. That is the proof that you're spiritually led. And we're glad to be in partnership to help launch this initiative.
And we're glad to be family with both of you, all of you, all three of you for
Yes,
sure.
indeed.
And I want to
Yes.
make it clear for those who are watching who are thinking, maybe I want to invest in Africa, but they're going to East Africa and I'm looking at the Queen right here. I think I want to do something in the Ivory Coast, or I'm looking at Kim and Baba Haki. I think I want to get into what they have going in Gambia or Ghana. You can do that. Like, we're starting. This is our inaugural tour. We're starting in East Africa because that's where we are. And we want to show you what we've built. You know, we want you to come and see on the ground. We want you to meet the people we know, the good people, the good relationships, the ones who are worthy of investment. It's normally the people who deserve it that don't get access to it.
Yes.
So we want to change that and put the right people together here in East Africa. But that doesn't mean you can't hit us up, contact us and say, hey, I have, XYZ, and I think it would do great in the Bronx region. Or, I think I could really facilitate something happening in Teaching Artists Institute Gambia or somewhere else. Don't think that we only want to talk about East Africa right now. This is just where we're touring next fall. We want you to come see next fall. Yes, absolutely. Come to the interest meeting. Go ahead and start your installments or pay in full if you got it. We'll make it happen next fall. But you also don't have to limit yourself, because we do have relationships, as you can see, in other places, and they are just as good as yours. If you are ready, if you have a viable initiative, and you come with the right intent, because like the Queen said, without the right intent, you will get chewed up and spit out. Okay? Chicken bones. Don't do that.
No. I'll thank you so much for that. And we need to have you come to Cote d'Ivoire. So we'll have to get you on that schedule. And don't let the language intimidate you. Learning English.
Absolutely. I'm a language learner. Okay.
Yes.
Since we made the decision to come to East Africa, I immediately started learning Kiswahili, and I'm about 80% through now. Like, I can hold it down.
And so we speak variations of tree in Cote d'Ivoire as well. So if you have access to Ghana tree, that can take you very far in Cote d'Ivoire as well, beyond the French. And a lot of them are learning English because they're ready to connect with us, because we as Americans weren't really there, but they're quite interested. So we'll be able to meet in the middle.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, I just want to, before we go, I know we're wrapping up. I just want to emphasize again that this conversation is on the margins of the U.S. Africa African Leaders Summit, and definitely a part of the U.S. Africa Investment and Trade Forum. And it's important that we understand this conversation in that context, because as the U.S. publicly expresses their newfound interest in this, I'll say in this recent time, to work with Africa, it's important that people know that we've already been doing this work, that we're on the ground. We didn't get an invitation from the USA to come, but we did get an invitation from the continent to do this work. And so that doesn't have to be your intermediary. If you are interested, you don't need to go through those outlets that never wanted us at the table anyway. So, consider this tour as that alternative.
Absolutely. Our table. We have our table. If anybody, I know Kim just kind of said hers, but anything you want to say before we go, like final words, wrapping up from Baba Sintwali, Baba Haki, and Queen Mother.
Here I go. So our goal is growth. It's an imperative. Like if you got, not only if you have children, but if you have grandchildren, or you want to shore up your future to make sure you can retire without still having to work or without struggling in your retirement. That's part of what we're here for. The planet is big. You don't have to feel stuck to America. There's many different places to go. If coming to an African country isn't your thing, at least get out of America and see what the world has to offer. There's many opportunities all over the place. And everybody is not bad everywhere you go, just like everybody's not good everywhere you go. So there's going to be probably the primary thing is to learn. Learning is probably one of the most things that we've done since we've been here or since we've left the States, and it's an ongoing thing. There's no stopping to learning. So doing your best to apply what you learn is that's knowledge, and that's what we're doing our best to gain.
Okay, Baba Haki.
Well, so this has been phenomenal. I appreciate. I didn't know a lot about you, Queen Mother. I mean, I knew a lot, but I appreciate just hearing a lot more, and it's very enlightening. So I'm looking forward to this opportunity. I feel that we have a great collaboration, and we're going to hit the various audiences because I feel that people are very curious about all three of these countries, and so we're excited about the partners and other collaborations. And I'll also just mention what one of the key catalysts and why this is going to be big is that on the ground in Tanzania, in Arusha, we will be partnering. There's an East African Chamber of Commerce conference that will simultaneously be going on. So we're going to really have you all connected, those that come with the right people on the ground. We're going to get the best knowledge on the ground and from some conscious Black people who are from here. So that's
right. I want to mention before we get our last words from the Queen Mother, our current project, one of our current projects going on here in Rwanda, and I don't know, I'll try to put a link in the comments or something before we go. But we are in the process of building a literacy center in a town called Gashora. And Gashora is maybe an hour outside of Kigali. And there's not a whole lot of infrastructure there. It's near different lakes. It's a beautiful area. But when it comes to plumbing or running water or electricity, it's scarce. It really is. And there are thousands of people and thousands more of children. And so in partnership with J Essence, you can find her on YouTube, JAI Essence, and her initiative. We're building a literacy center. The government there actually offered land for that to be built on. So we're going through the processes for that. The GoFundMe is live. I'll put that link in the comments so that you can contribute to that initiative. And like we said, a little goes a long way here. So don't think, your $10 won't be effective or your $5 won't be enough. Everything adds up. I mean, we're already at $3,000 little by little. So you can go to that GoFundMe link and make your contribution. All right, Queen Mother.
It has been such a pleasure. And Swatara, thank you so much. I love your Detroit can-do attitude, bringing the best of that to the continent. That's why I love Detroit. It's just believing in it. And speaking of believing, for those who are listening, Believe in your gifts, believe in your idea, believe in your desire. Be the conduit to do those things that your grandparents or your parents or other loved ones couldn't do. Now's the time. You may have experienced lots of rejection, or you may have humble resources, or you may have tried something in the past and it didn't succeed. That was then, this is now. Prepare yourself for success, for partnership, and to win. Invest in yourself the time to plan. Invest in yourself the funding to be able to go. Invest in yourself or whatever skills you may need to brush up upon in order to execute what you would like to do, because it is here. And so my parting words is just affirmations. And so it's so true that we may or may not be invited to certain tables, but we can construct our own. And there are other tables where we are being invited to and where our gifts are making room for us. And I want to encourage you and excite you for that possibility to know that now is a wonderful time. That connection with the continent for many of us will not be understood by others. And that is okay. We don't need to explain it or justify it. We need to cherish and honor it. It is there. And it's just an amazing time right now where we can heal and break generational curses. When we talk about investment, it may not always be in terms of your dollars into a project and expecting returns. Yes, those opportunities are there and they're high, but it can be an investment, right? An investment in terms of reconnection, an investment in cultural preservation, an investment in fortifying yourself on a spiritual level. There are all kinds of investments and all kinds of returns. And so when it comes to things like reparations, we are often looking from the outside for restitution, but we have agency ourselves to help with that restitution. And part of this is, in fact, doing that. So there are investment opportunities on the table ready to go in the $6 million range. And there are life-changing opportunities at the $3,000 range. And you can even impact someone's life with $500. And so think about who or what you want to invest in. And thank you so much for having me and just talk a little bit about some of the work that I'm currently doing. But the scale is great. And so you might be motivated as an individual, but if you are part of a larger community or an association, you have folks who are rallying and coming together in that capacity to make an impact. If you have a business, then you are often able to find a counterpart for co-ownership and can do work and expand that way. So it is an exciting time. We have to humble ourselves. And I will say this. One of our Achilles heels, for those of us who are African American, sometimes we operate or stay in a place of memory and of sadness. And this is an opportunity to engage and to live in a period of gladness. So this is very important because we want to reconnect with the continent for the restitution of the past, and that is very important. But we should also be optimistic and forward-looking about what we can build reunited together in the future. So thank you so much, and I applaud all of your initiatives. Bless you, Haki, as well, for all that you are doing. Yes. And Baba Swantali, bless you as well, paying it forward and carrying the torch. We cannot wait to have you in Cote d'Ivoire. You have family there. Yes. And as I've mentioned, I've worked in, I think, 16 think maybe 16 African countries or so. So those opportunities are certainly far and wide. So many blessings to all of you. Thank you. And to those watching and supporting, thank you for your time. And we hope that we're inspiring you for 2023 and beyond.
Absolutely. Ashe. Thank you all.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Till next time, everyone. Peace and blessings. We are out. Thank you. Thank you again.
Okay.
All right.